Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that will change the way you see your life forever. Consistency will break every limit you have. People talk about talent, they talk about luck, they talk about opportunity, but the truth is none of that means anything if you are not consistent. Consistency is the quiet, unseen power that turns ordinary people into extraordinary successes. It's the difference between a dream that fades away and a vision that becomes reality. I didn't get here because I was the funniest or the most connected or the most fortunate. I got here because I was consistent. I showed up day after day, no matter how many doors slammed in my face, no matter how many times people laughed at me or doubted me, I stayed consistent. That's what broke the limits off my life, and that's what can break the limits off yours too. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something I learned the hard way in my life. Consistency is the one thing that will break every limit you've ever had. People always want to know the secret to success, like there's some magical formula, some hidden key that only a few people have. But the truth is, there ain't no secret. The truth is consistency. You see, consistency doesn't care about how much talent you got. It doesn't care how much money you start with. It doesn't care about your background or your education. Consistency is the great equalizer. You can have a dream so big that it scares you, but if you don't have consistency, that dream will die inside of you. And you can have a dream that looks impossible, but if you stay consistent, one day that dream will turn into your reality. I'm standing here today not because I was the funniest man that ever lived, not because I had the best opportunities handed to me, but because I refused to quit showing up. I made a decision to be consistent, even when I felt like nothing was working. See, consistency is not about perfection. It's about persistence. That's where people mess it up. They think consistency means you got to do everything right every single time. No, man, you're going to mess up, you're going to fall short, you're going to stumble. But what makes consistency powerful is that even after you fail, you still get back up the next day and try again. When you fall down, you don't stay down. You don't throw in the towel. You don't let the defeat define you. You say, all right, I messed up, but I'm still in the fight. That's what breaks limits. Limits are not broken by one big win. Limits are broken by small daily victories that stack up over time. When you're consistent, those little victories start building momentum. And before you know it, what looked impossible yesterday becomes your normal today. Consistency is also about faith. When you keep working towards something, even though you don't see the results yet, that's faith in action. That's saying, I don't see it, but I believe it's coming. When I first started out, nobody knew me. I was driving long hours, working small clubs, getting booed off stage, wondering if I'd ever make it. But I stayed consistent. I kept writing jokes. I kept practicing. I kept showing up. That consistency became my faith in motion. And over time, doors started to open. See, consistency has a way of creating opportunities that you couldn't have planned for. When you stay in the game long enough, the right people notice you, the right breaks come your way, and the limits you thought were permanent start to disappear. That's the reward of consistency. But let me be real with you. Consistency is not exciting. It's not glamorous. It's boring. It's repetitive. And most of the time, it feels like you're not moving anywhere. That's why so many people quit. They want quick results. They want overnight success. They want the trophy without running the race. But consistency is the grind that separates the dreamers from the doers. It's the daily choices, the daily sacrifices, the daily work that nobody claps for, nobody sees, nobody celebrates. But if you stay with it, if you keep stacking those unseen days, eventually they show up as visible results. Consistency is quiet, but the results speak loud. I want you to think about this. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it, you're breaking limits. Every time you push past your excuses and do what you said you were going to do, you're breaking limits. Every time you stay the course when everybody else has walked away, you're breaking limits. Consistency is not just about building success, it's about building you. It's shaping your character. It's teaching you resilience. It's stretching your capacity. It's turning you into the person who is strong enough to handle the blessing when it finally comes. Because let me tell you, the blessing you're asking for requires a version of you that only consistency can create. Ladies and gentlemen, consistency teaches you patience, it teaches you discipline, and it teaches you faith. A lot of people fail not because they don't have a dream, but because they can't stay with the process long enough to see the dream come to life. Everybody wants success, but very few people want the patience that comes with it. See, patience is what allows you to keep showing up when nothing seems to be changing. Patience is what keeps you going when you put it into work, but the results are not visible yet. Most folks quit right at the edge of their breakthrough because they can't handle the waiting period. But consistency builds patience, and patience produces results. When you wake up every day and give your best, even if you don't see progress, you're training yourself to trust the process. You're saying to yourself, I might not be where I want to be, but I'm not where I used to be. And as long as I keep stepping, I'm getting closer. That mindset breaks limits. Consistency also teaches discipline. Discipline is doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it. Anybody can work hard on the days they're motivated. Anybody can give their best when the crowd is cheering. But it's the days when you're tired, the days when you're discouraged, the days when you feel like quitting. Those are the days that define who you really are. Consistency forces you to develop discipline because success doesn't wait on your feelings. Success doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if you're in the mood. It doesn't care if life feels unfair. Success responds to discipline. You want to know why some people make it and others don't? It's not because one person is smarter or more gifted. It's because one person had the discipline to stay consistent when everything inside of them wanted to quit. That's the difference maker. Discipline says, I made a commitment, so I'm going to show up whether I feel like it or not. And when you live with that kind of consistency, you become unstoppable. Now, let's talk about faith. Consistency is proof of your faith. Faith without works is dead, and consistency is the work that proves you believe in your dream. Every time you keep going despite setbacks, you're showing faith. Every time you do the small unseen task that nobody celebrates, you're saying, I believe in what I'm building even if nobody else does. That's powerful. Faith and consistency are connected because consistency is how you demonstrate belief in something you cannot yet see. You can't ask God to bless you with more if you're not consistent with what you already have. You can't expect new opportunities if you're not faithful with the ones in front of you. Consistency says, Lord, I might not see it yet, but I trust you enough to keep showing up. And when you carry yourself like that, blessings will chase you down. But let me tell you, the road of consistency is lonely. People will laugh at you, doubt you, and even tell you you're wasting your time. That's why patience, discipline, and faith matter so much. They hold you together when nothing else does. Patience tells you, keep going, your time is coming. Discipline tells you, do the work no matter how you feel. Faith tells you, believe even when you can't see. And when those three come together inside of you through consistency, you can't be stopped. You become the kind of person who is not shaken by setbacks, who is not discouraged by delays, who is not destroyed by doubt. You become the kind of person who keeps pressing forward until every limit breaks. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason consistency is so powerful is because it outlasts everything else. Talent, as great as it is, fades if you don't keep using it. Motivation, as exciting as it feels, dies the moment life hits you hard. Opportunities, no matter how big, come and go like the seasons. But consistency is the one thing that stays and keeps building no matter what's happening around you. When you're consistent, you don't have to depend on luck. You don't have to wait for the perfect moment. You don't have to worry about somebody opening the door for you, because consistency creates its own momentum, its own opportunities, its own doors. It's not about how much you do once in a while. It's about what you do day in and day out. That's what shapes your habits, and your habits shape your character, and your character is what builds your destiny. I've seen so many people who had everything going for them lose it all because they didn't stay consistent. I've seen people who were incredibly talented, smarter than me, funnier than me, more gifted than me, but they couldn't discipline themselves to show up every single day. They would work hard for a season and then quit when things got tough. They had the gift, but they didn't have the consistency. And without consistency, your gift won't take you very far. On the other hand, I've seen people who didn't look like they had much going for them, people who didn't have the resources or the education or the connections, but they stayed consistent. They just kept showing up. They just kept working. They refused to stop. And those are the ones who end up rising. Those are the ones who surprise everybody, because consistency beats talent when talent refuses to stay the course. About consistency is that it builds habits, and habits are powerful. Your life right now is the sum of your habits. If your habits are inconsistent, your results will be inconsistent. If your habits are weak, your life will be weak. But if your habits are strong, disciplined, and consistent, your life will be strong. Every small action you take, repeated over time, is building something. The question is, what are you building? Because whether you realize it or not, consistency works both ways. If you consistently make excuses, you're building a life of regret. If you consistently give up, you're building a life of disappointment. But if you consistently choose discipline, if you consistently choose persistence, if you consistently choose growth, you're building a life of breakthroughs and blessings. Consistency also builds character. See, character is not built in the spotlight. It's built in the quiet, hidden places where nobody sees you. It's built in the times you keep your word when nobody is watching. It's built when you push yourself to do better when no one will ever know if you didn't. Consistency shapes who you are at the core. And who you are at the core will determine how far you go. When you're consistent, you're not just building success, you're building integrity, reliability, and strength. And those are the qualities that last longer than any achievement. Because achievements can be taken away, but character will always carry you through. And ultimately, consistency creates destiny. People think destiny is some big, magical event that happens out of nowhere, but destiny is simply the harvest of your daily seeds. You reap what you sow, and what you sow consistently becomes your life. If you sow discipline, you'll reap growth. If you sow persistence, you'll reap blessings. If you sow faith, you'll reap blessings. That's destiny, and it's built one consistent choice at a time. Consistency is not glamorous, but it's undefeated. It will always take you further than talent, further than motivation, further than opportunity, because when everything else fails, consistency remains. Ladies and gentlemen, consistency will expose your limits and then destroy them. A lot of people don't realize this, but the limits you think you have are not real barriers. They're illusions created by your mind and your comfort zone. You don't know how strong you are until consistency forces you to find out. Every time you reach a point where you feel like, I can't do this anymore, and yet you still keep going, you stretch yourself. That's how you grow. That's how you discover that the limits you believed in were nothing more than lies. And let me tell you, life will keep testing you until you break through those lies. Consistency is what pushes you beyond what you thought was possible. When you do something over and over again, even when it feels uncomfortable, you're training yourself to live beyond the limits you once accepted. I remember plenty of times in my journey when I thought I had reached the end of what I could handle. Nights when I had no money, days when I got rejected, times when I felt like quitting comedy altogether. I'd tell myself, maybe this just isn't for me, but I showed up anyway. I got back on stage anyway. I kept writing anyway. And what happened was, every time I pushed through that wall, another wall fell down. Every time I kept going after I thought I couldn't, I built more strength, more courage, more endurance. That's what consistency does. It doesn't just give you results, it transforms you. It turns you into the kind of person who can handle more, who can endure more, who can keep climbing even when the mountain gets steep. See, consistency is not glamorous. People want success to feel exciting all the time, but real growth comes in the boring, repetitive grind. It comes from doing the same small, difficult task over and over again when nobody's watching, when nobody's clapping, when nobody's even paying attention. That grind doesn't look like it's breaking limits, but it is. It's building resilience in you. It's teaching you how to operate under pressure. It's showing you that what once felt impossible is now your normal. Think about it. At some point in your life, something you're doing right now used to feel impossible. But because you kept doing it, because you stayed consistent, now it's just part of who you are. That's proof that limits are not fixed. They can be broken if you stay with the process. Consistency is also the antidote to fear. Fear will tell you to stop. Fear will tell you you've gone far enough. Fear will tell you you're not capable of more. But when you're consistent, you don't make decisions based on fear. You make them based on discipline. And when you live like that, fear starts losing its power over you. The more consistent you are, the more courage you build. The more courage you build, the fewer limits can hold you. Every time you ignore fear and take another step forward, you've proven to yourself that the limit was never real to begin with. Now, let me be clear. Consistency is going to test you. It will make you tired. It will make you doubt yourself. And it will make you question why you even started. But those moments of struggle are where the breakthrough is hidden. Limits don't disappear when you stay comfortable. Limits disappear when you fight through the discomfort and keep going. That's why consistency is so powerful. It forces you into uncomfortable territory again and again until the discomfort becomes your strength. And once you've experienced that, once you've seen yourself go past what you thought was possible, you become unstoppable. Because if you've broken one limit, you know you can break another. And if you can break another, there's nothing in this world that can truly hold you back. Ladies and gentlemen, consistency is going to cost you something. It will cost you your comfort, it will cost you your excuses, and it will cost you your laziness. But the beauty of it is that what you gain is so much greater than what you lose. See, most people want success without sacrifice. They want the reward, but not the price. But there's no way around it. You can't stay consistent without giving something up. You might have to give up your comfort zone. You might have to give up hanging out when you know you should be working. You might have to give up sleeping in when you need to get up early. Consistency asks you, what are you willing to sacrifice to get where you want to go? Because you can't hold on to everything and still move forward. Progress requires letting go, and consistency keeps you letting go day after day until what you gain outweighs what you lost. When I was starting out, there were nights I wanted to be out with my friends, but I had to be at the club working on my set. There were mornings I wanted to sleep in, but I had to get up and hustle. There were times I wanted to give up and just live an easy life, but I knew the life I wanted required discipline. That's the price of consistency. It's not free, but it's worth it. Because every time I paid that price, I was investing in my future. And one day that investment started paying off. What I'm telling you is this. Don't let the temporary discomfort of consistency rob you of the permanent reward of success. The reward of consistency is progress. Every day you stay consistent, you move forward, even if it's just an inch. And those inches add up. People look at somebody successful and think they got there overnight. But what they don't see are the years of small, consistent steps that led to that moment. Progress is not about big leaps. It's about steady movement. You might not notice it at first, but when you look back after being consistent for a while, you'll see how far you've come. And that realization gives you confidence. Confidence doesn't come from wishing. It comes from proving to yourself that you can stay the course. Another reward of consistency is breakthroughs. There are things in your life that won't unlock until you've proven you're consistent enough to handle them. Some doors won't open until you've shown up enough times to be trusted with what's behind them. That's why people who quit never get to experience breakthroughs. They gave up right before the door was about to open. But when you stay consistent, you put yourself in position for the breakthrough. You show life that you're serious, that you can be trusted, that you're ready. And when that breakthrough comes, all the sacrifice will make sense. Consistency also gives you something shortcuts never will: strength. See, shortcuts might give you fast results, but they won't give you the character to maintain those results. That's why so many people who take shortcuts lose everything. They weren't consistent enough to handle the blessing. But when you've been consistent, when you've sacrificed, when you've paid the price, you're not just successful, you're strong enough to hold on to success. You've got endurance, you've got resilience, and you've got the wisdom that only comes from the grind. So yes, consistency will cost you. But when you really think about it, isn't it better to pay the price of discipline than the price of regret? Isn't it better to sacrifice your excuses today than to sacrifice your dreams tomorrow? The cost of consistency may feel heavy now, but the weight of regret is far heavier. And if you choose consistency, you won't have to carry that weight. You'll carry the reward instead. Ladies and gentlemen, motivation is good, but discipline fueled by consistency is what will change your life. Motivation is like a spark. It can light you up for a moment, but it fades quickly. You can't depend on motivation because life is not always going to feel inspiring. There will be mornings you wake up tired. There will be days when the results don't match the effort. There will be seasons when everything feels heavy. And on those days, motivation won't be enough to carry you. That's when discipline has to step in. Discipline says, I made a commitment and I'm going to honor it whether I feel like it or not. And when you pair that kind of discipline with consistency, you build a force that nothing can stop. You don't need to set out to be the best overnight. You just need to commit to being better than you were yesterday. That's the secret. People get overwhelmed because they look too far ahead. They look at the mountain instead of the step. They say, how can I ever reach the top? But consistency says, don't worry about the top. Just take the step in front of you today. And when you add those steps up day after day, suddenly you've climbed higher than you thought possible. That's the power of consistency. It makes the impossible possible by breaking it down into daily, manageable actions. Think about it this way. If you took one small step toward your dream every single day, where would you be a year from now? Where would you be 5 years from now? The truth is you'd be so far ahead of most people because most people don't stay consistent long enough to see results. They want big changes overnight. But real transformation comes slowly, through discipline, through showing up daily, through refusing to quit when things don't happen fast enough. That's why consistency is so dangerous to limits, because it doesn't need to break them in one blow. It chips away at them until they crumble. Now, the beauty of consistency is that it builds momentum. At first, it feels slow. At first, it feels like you're working hard and nothing's happening. But if you keep going, if you keep stacking days on top of days, something powerful happens. Momentum kicks in. And once momentum shows up, you don't have to push as hard as you did in the beginning. It starts carrying you forward. You start to notice results. You start to see progress. And that progress fuels more action, which creates more momentum. It's a cycle that only consistency can start. But once it starts, it's hard to stop. Consistency will also outshine your doubts. Doubt tells you you're not good enough. Doubt tells you you're not ready. Doubt tells you the dream is too big. But every time you show up in spite of doubt, every time you take another step when fear is in your ear, you weaken that doubt, you prove it wrong, and the more you prove it wrong, the quieter it gets. Before long, your consistency builds a confidence that no amount of doubt can shake. You become certain not because everything went your way, but because you know you can keep going no matter what comes your way. That's real strength. So stop waiting to feel motivated. Stop waiting for the perfect time. Stop waiting for somebody to push you. Make the decision to be disciplined, to be consistent, to take the small steps daily that will lead to big results later. Success doesn't belong to the most talented or the luckiest. It belongs to the most consistent. And when you live that way, when you show up every single day with discipline, with persistence, with faith, you will not only reach your goals, you will break every limit you ever thought you had.